Good day and welcome to Cracking the Code. Again, my name is Ryan Skinner, and each week we try to touch on a topic that, either hits home to, regarding financial, regarding retirement planning, or sometimes we'll have an investment guest on, or sometimes we'll, interview somebody who's in recovery or who blew up their life, because I've been in recovery now for a number of years, and I find it interesting. Frankly, I find it very interesting interviewing somebody who's really screwed up their life, came back. I love a comeback story. We've had, police chiefs, you name it. And what I thought I'd bring up this time is something I had heard. Now, I'm not into politics at all, but I always see different Zooms. And the one thing at YouTube I saw recently was it was some stupid video of Donald Trump, and he said, the cure for depression is work harder. And although I don't agree with that, I think mental health is a real thing. I will say that when I'm productive or busy or being of service, using my talents, I'm thinking of myself a lot less. So, I've realized throughout life that we all go through ups and downs. And I was doing a video today for existing clients about, what's going on with the weather and people in the winter and how they buckle down and bunker down, and how clients that go to Florida for the winter or go somewhere warm where they're outside tend to live longer, believe it or not, and definitely happier. It doesn't mean it has to be Florida, or even people who stay local that are skiers, But the reality is, if you're just, trying to get through a 3-month depression, 25% of your life is basically gone, or you're just trying to survive and not thrive. And I realized that some of the toughest times I've gone through, and I've gone through it all. I mean, maybe not all. Let me correct myself. There's a lot I haven't gone through, thank God. But, everything from depression to anxiety, a tough divorce, custody battles, back in the day, addiction struggles, things like that. The one cure I found for all of them was when I was working hard. When I was trying to be of service. I'm very lucky. When I got sober years ago, my mom gave me a piece of advice that stuck. She said, Ryan, your 20s, you're about money. You want to make money, and you realize money didn't make you happy. Find what makes you happy, relationships. You enjoy what you do. And luckily, I held on to that. And then I would read different books, and some books would be spiritual books, and some would be business. And they all tied together with the fact that if you're really doing what you love, and we've all heard that cliche thing, if you do what you love, you never work. But the reality is, when I really started pouring myself into what I was doing and the people I was doing it for, and really getting to know them as people, not just, their financials, I found myself engrossed in their world and enamored by them. And next thing I knew, I wasn't thinking of my own problem, struggle, anxiety, or depression. And slowly, days would become weeks would become months. And that's how it started with recovery. And then when I was going through the divorce, same thing. I was just trying to hold on. If I could just get through today, if I can get through till lunchtime. And then next thing I knew, days became weeks and weeks. And, over the last couple of months, I've realized it. I'm not a big fan of the winter. And, with the holidays, my first Christmas, not waking up with Dylan, and last year, the last couple of years, I've been fortunate enough to have her. And I realized that if I pour myself into being of service, for me, a lot of it's work. A lot of it's being involved in recovery, whether I'm going to meet people for coffee if they're having a hard time, or going to meet somebody if I'm having a hard time. The connection is a beautiful thing. Being in recovery, I saw a shirt once that says, the opposite of addiction is connection. I think that the opposite of a lot of things is connection. The opposite of depression. The opposite of failure. Because if you're on your own, it's very hard to know if you've fallen off a cliff, whether it's business-wise, financially, emotionally, because you only hear one voice. And sometimes we have a voice that tells us strong things. Hey, we're doing great. Keep going. And sometimes it's telling us that, and we're not doing great. It's lying to us in our own voice. Other times it's lying and saying it's much worse. Oh, you're never going to come back. It's never going to be okay. You're doomed. And the truth is, it may just be a bad day. What I've learned is when I take a step back and I pause and I bring other people in, I heard Brady say it again the other night. When you have a problem you share with somebody, you cut it in half. You're not burdening that person. You're allowing that person to get out themselves. Then again, if you have success you share with somebody, you just doubled it. And these are cliche sayings, but the truth is, when I'm doing well, if something's going really well at work and I bring my team into it, I see all of them feel a sense of purpose. If we're working on a case, we're helping somebody retire. Like today, a couple was coming in, and this summer the wife was going to be able to roll her 401k into an IRA and start doing Roth planning, and she's all excited about some of that stuff. And she asked us if we'd be a part of it. And it's an honor and a privilege. And I wasn't the only one excited. Everybody on my team in that room, whether it was the attorney that we work with or the accountants, they were all, elated to be part of this lady's retirement. And during that time, none of us were thinking of our own stuff. One of my I have heat at home, two different levels. My second floor has one heat system, and the first floor a separate one. Well, the first floor one's not working out so well. So what do? I drip the water a little, and I run the second floor real hot, and hopefully it gets around. It seems to work. My heat guy's down in Aruba right now, and he'll be back, and he'll correct it. But that's a luxury problem. But it wasn't on my mind at all. But when I got to work today, it was really bothering me. I was thinking earlier today at work about a woman I know who had taken a fall, and she was a really nice gal. And, when she took a fall, her kids were mad at her because, she was struggling with some personal stuff, and, she's in her late 60s. And I was kind of distraught with that because I thought, our kids don't understand. They're not being very kind. And then I took a step back and thought, I don't know how long this woman's put her kids through stress. I don't know the other side of it. More often than not in life, we don't see the full view, the full perspective. And I think we try to, and we want to see things as they are, but we're not capable. No human being is capable of looking at things the way they truly are. We all have some sort of call it a prejudice or some sort of perspective on it. I had one of my clients come in this week, and we get a bunch of referrals now. It's funny. We used to get a few a year. Now we get a few a month. And it allows us to keep our fees no in a lot of cases and low in other cases. But we're ridiculously lower than all competition, apparently, from what I've been told. I've never really shopped the competition. And this one client, not only did she bring her friend in, but she came in for each meeting with her friend. And I thought to myself, here's this woman whose husband had some health issues, who's a tremendous woman, just amazing. And she's taking the time to do this. And I said to her, you didn't have to do this. She said, no, I didn't. I said, no, you didn't. She goes, Ron, you're like family to us. And you reach out and ask when there's a health issue, when there's this and that. She goes, we care. And she goes, and I also care about my friend. And I didn't want her to just end up anywhere. I wanted her here because of the bond we have. The ability of two people to come together and make a difference, whether it's a financial difference and we're doing something with charities, whether it's an emotional difference, you're lifting somebody up emotionally, whether it's just something, interrupting somebody's day in a positive way and holding the door and saying, hey, how you doing? The impact we can have on each other is profound. It's amazing to me how often I've overlooked that. I can only speak from my perspective, and my perspective is so often if I'm bummed out or if I'm stressed or if I'm anxious, I will literally fall into a hole of, well, poor me, I can't believe this is happening, and why do I feel so down? The second, and I mean the second I get involved with trying to help somebody, whether I come to work, once I jump into a work meeting, boom, everything falls aside. Or whether I, go call a friend who I know might be going through something, or if I just simply get out of myself, whether I go to a recovery meeting and actually listen, I'm not on my phone. The second I take time to get out of Ryan's life gets better. I don't know how that works. I have learned that when people call, a lot of people in the financial industry or in other sales industries will call and say, can you give me advice as to how you built this, or what you're doing here, or what would you do? And my answer is usually, well, how do you start your day? Does your day start at 7:30 when you have to be at work at 8 and you roll up, throw some water in your face out the door? Or you're one of those people who gets up early, take some time to pray, meditate, you do some journaling. Do you work out? You should be getting some blood moving, whether it's early in the day or if you want to do it later in the day. Do you take a shower, maybe throw some cold water on you for a while just to shock the system? There's so many ways people can do things to be successful. And sometimes I'll have people say, well, what does that have to do with success? And my answer is everything. If you're not having success in some area of your life, especially a professional area, then go back to basics. And the basics are up early, pray, meditate, journal, two-way prayer, which I just learned about. Who would have thought that I could pray to something out there and then quietly listen for the answers to come? That's insane to me, but it worked. And it was shocking. Some of the answers I didn't want. There were plenty of things I wish I didn't feel, but they were answers definitely from something greater than me, because I would have never chose those answers. Recently I've had this quest. I've been wanting to grow closer to God. There have been times in my life where I felt like God was like gravity. I could just, boom, he was right there. There were other times where God was off in the universe. And, I was raised Irish Catholic. I always tell people, kind of like a recovering Catholic. But the truth is, I didn't realize. I was talking to a friend of mine today, and I was talking about Catholic guilt, and he said, I'm Jewish. We got guilt. I said, what do you mean? Like Irish Catholic guilt? He said, oh, you don't even know about Jew guilt? And he said about, he didn't call his mother enough, and she was complaining, why don't you call your mother? And then a friend of ours who's from India and is Hindu, he said, oh, I get yelled at from my mother all the time in guilt. What do you mean? We all think that we're so terminally unique, and the truth is we're all the same. Each of us needs all of us. Most of us, we believe in something. We all believe the same something. We have just different pipelines to get there. So I tell folks, if you want to be successful, if you do all these things, I can guarantee you success. I can't tell you which thing worked or which didn't, but I can tell you if you do all of them, one will work. Get up, roll out of bed, pray to something. Whatever you believe in out there, there's got to be something. And if you think there's nothing out there, go jump in the middle of the ocean and just survive on your own. It's not going to happen. Okay? In addition to that, try journaling. Write 5 things you're grateful for and why. I'll tell you right now, when I put down 5 things, and there have been days I've had a hard time finding 5 things, which is pathetic considering the life I live. This week, having warm socks, a warm bed, be able to tuck my daughter and kiss her goodnight, be able to cook for my daughter. On top of that, after I pray and I write down my 5 things, I try to get the blood moving. I try to get a workout in. I try to put some form of protein in my body so my brain's got some kind of nourishment so I'm not running on E. Because when I get down and my food gets low, I start getting anxious. My blood sugar gets a little wonky. And before I know it, I'm showering, get ready to work. And I make sure I have my clothes out the night before I do things to make my next day productive. All you're going to hear from me, none of this is unique. In fact, none of it I've come up with. But I've taken tidbits of different mentors, of different spiritual gurus, of different financial business gurus, and I pieced it together into a package that I can live day in and day out. And I go off to work. And when I come in, I truly try to understand how my day and my staff is. For so long I'd be so stressed out with my anxiety and my divorce and my this. I would run by and say, hey, how you doing? And keep running. Now I genuinely want to know how are they doing. Because I find when I do want to know, the relationship gets better, the bonds get stronger. I'm a guy who had nothing, short 15 years ago, maybe 16. Now I have a practice that allows me to help people retire. I have clients that trust me with their life savings. I have clients that are family that I could call any day of the week with anything going on in my life, and they would stop what they're doing, listen to me, and if I needed them, they'd drop what they're doing and come to me. I have people that could call me and I would drop what I'm doing. I could be in a client meeting. If somebody called and needed help, there's a bunch of people that I would drop what I was doing. I have people that are a part of my daughter's life. And her life wasn't always the easiest path with the autism and a little bit of a delay. But there were people that stepped in to play a role. Most of those people came through my life either through being clients of mine or being in recovery. Everything that you would think, working a ton and having an addiction past, 2 negatives you would think, oh, he's always working. Those are where the 2 greatest gifts of my life came from. And then I learned at the end of the day when I go home, I sometimes write a short journal, like a short letter to God or the universe, just to talk about what I did well, what I felt like I came up short, where I need help. And then I try to have some quiet time before going to bed. I've recently bought one of those red light maps. Now, I don't know if it's the smartest thing or not, but I bought one, and I lay on it every night before bed. And I'll tell you, one thing I do know is I crawl into bed after, and I fall asleep as if I got hit by a bus. It's amazing how just my body just feels so melts into bed. No other way to put it. But not everyone has the resource to be out doing those things. So how do you do it? You can't get a gym membership, go for a walk, push-ups, pull-ups. Eating well's tough. I don't think I realized how expensive it was out there until I started tracking what I spent. And I thought, geez, how do normal people just do it? Luckily it's just me and Dylan, so it gets a little more manageable. When you go through tough stuff, because all of us go through stuff, relationships aren't easy, especially for people with addiction past. We're complicated people. I've been told that a lot of people in recovery are egomaniacs with inferiority complexes, and that's pretty true when it comes to our social lives, when it comes to dating. It's funny, one of the only times I ever feel right-sized in my life is twice. When I'm at work, I know I was destined to do this. There's no question in my mind. Like some people say, well, what do you think you'd do if you weren't doing this? I was like, I'd be doing this. There's no question. And the other thing is being a dad. I was under the impression, I was led to believe that I wouldn't be able to be a good dad because of, a history with addiction back in my 20s or bipolar or some stuff like that, and I bought into it for a long time. But then I realized, wow, I'm a tremendous dad. You know how I became a tremendous dad? It wasn't me. It was, again, people in recovery coaching me and clients stepping up and teaching me how to live and teaching me how to be a dad. I even had to make a school lunch, called the client at 9 o'clock at night. First night I had my daughter overnight. I've been so blessed to have so many people be in my corner. And most of those people want to do is be a blessing because they got fulfilled. And that's all we want. Listen, if you're out there and you're struggling, whether it's mental health, addiction, you're a business owner, you're saying, how do I get to that next level? How can I? I'm already making 200 grand, 300 grand. There's no more room for growth. There's always room for growth. And the truth is, if you bring other people along with you and they're growing with you, not only will you continue to grow and you'll have more time and more success, but success isn't defined by money. Success is defined by how many people you can bring across the finish line with you. One of the greatest joys of my life will be when I watch young Chris, kid I've been mentoring now for over 5 years, when I watch him buy his first house. His mother immigrated from Brazil. She's a housekeeper, hardworking person, salty earth person. He's a great young man, and when I first got him, he was like a baby, so I had to mentor him, and now I watch this young man, I think to myself, like, wow, I get to be part of that. And he always thanks me, and I look at him and I say, you don't have to thank me. Believe me, the payoff's just as much, maybe more. Folks, if you're out there and you're alone, reach out. Reach out to somebody you know, somebody you admire, reach out to us. If you're trying to grow and you're struggling, you hit roadblocks, you're not really sure what the next right move is, sometimes you have to go one step back to diagnose the situation, take two forward, reach out. If we can be of service to you any way, whether it's retirement planning, mental health, recovery, or any other aspect that you could think of that we can't, reach out. Lead is serve. We're here to be of service. That's how you crack the code.